Hello everyone, this is our second to the last lecture under obligations and contracts. So basically, we are done with obligations and we are starting our lesson with contracts. This is just a fast track about contracts, their enforceability, and when are contracts considered void and unenforceable. The definition of a contract is provided for under Article 1305 of the New Civil Code. What is a contract? A contract is a meeting of minds between two persons whereby one binds himself with respect to the other to give something or to render some service. What then is meeting of the minds? Meeting of minds is the intention of the parties in entering into the contract respecting the subject matter and consideration thereof. Kanus man na ay meeting of the minds. For example, niingon ka kang A, pwede ta mag-uyab? Niingon si A, sige, mag-uyab na ta. The moment you understand each other, the moment your mind and A's mind are on the same track, that is what we call the meeting of the minds. Meaning, the intention of the parties in entering into the contract respecting the subject matter and consideration thereof has already been achieved. Ma'am, wala pa man ni kontrata, ma'am, kaya ako ni pirma. Contracts are enforceable regardless of whatever forms they may have been entered into. The moment nga naa na mo'y meeting of the minds, naa na mo'y kontrata, masking pag wala pa ka naka pirma. For example, si A na maligya og balay, niingon si B, A, paliton na ko na imong balay, niingon si A, sige, palitan ni 350,000, uyon ka ana, niingon si B, yes, uyon ko ana. Pag ingon ni B nga muuyon siya nga paliton niya ang balay worth 350,000, that is what we call the meeting of the minds. A contract is perfected by mere consent. Pag sugot nimo nga mopalit ka sa balay worth 350,000, automatic the contract is perfected. Again, ma'am, wala pa may kontrata kay wa man ko ni pirma. A contract does not require special form and is binding from the moment the essential requisites are present. For example, D and C agreed that they will go to Mass every Sunday at the St. Therese Chapel in Villamor, Pasay for 10 consecutive days. Kinsa nagsabot si D ug si C unsa ilang sabot nga musimba sila asa sa St. Therese Chapel. Unsa ilang gisabutan, musimba sila for 10 consecutive Sundays. Unsay contract ni D and C? D and C agreed that if D will hear Mass for 10 consecutive Sundays at St. Therese Chapel, C will give D 100,000 pesos. Since nag-agree si D and C, aduna na sila'y contract the moment ni agree si C nga hatagan niya si D og 100,000 if nakumpleto ni D ang 10 consecutive Sundays. However, can a party have an obligation even without a contract? Yes. Remember our definition with what is an obligation? It is the duty of someone to give, to do, or not to do. Ang agreement ni D and C is an obligation to do, and it is performance. Unsay performance? Nga si D mosimba pila ka adlaw 10 consecutive Sundays. Kung makumpleto na ni D, pila ang ihatag ni C? 100,000. Can a party have an obligation even without a contract? Of course, the answer is yes. You always go back to the definition of obligation. Now, ingon taganiha, a contract is valid regardless of whatever form they may have been entered into. Ma'am, wala ko gipirmahan na anabay kontrata. Yes, because there is already a meeting of the minds. How much more kung nipirma na ka? Contracts are valid regardless of whatever form they may have been entered into, unsa ingon, so long as the essential requisites of a contract are present. So what are the essential requisites of a contract? This is provided for under Article 1318 of the Civil Code. Tulo lang, always remember, COC. Unsay pasabot? Consent, object, and cause or consideration. COC. Sugot ta sa consent. Consent is the concurrence of the wills of the parties with respect to the object and cause. Balik ta kay C ug D. Diba si C ug D nagsabot nga mosimba sila sa St. Therese Chapel pila ka adlaw? 10 consecutive Sundays. Kung makumpleto ni D, hatagan siya ni C og 100,000. The moment kaning sugot si D, nga musimba siya para makadawat siya 100,000. That is what we call consent. Consent with respect to the object and the cause. What are our object and the cause? Going to church for 10 consecutive Sundays with the 100,000 pesos. Now, what are the requisites of consent? Dili lang si contract ang naay requisite, na apoy requisite si consent. The first requisite of consent is legal capacity. Unsang legal capacity? Meaning, you have or the law provides that you may enter into a contract. Kinsa man ang nagka-provide og legal capacity? No other than our laws. Meaning, kung minor ka, below 18 years old, you may not enter into a contract. Kung buang ka, di pod ka pwede mo enter into contract. Ma'am, buang ko karon ugma dili, pagka ugma pa ka pwede mo enter into a contract. Ma'am, akong parents dato kaayo, gusto nila palitan kog balay, pwede ba ko mo pirma? 15 years old pa ko, of course, dili nga naman ang sa ingon sa law, minors cannot enter into a contract. So ma'am, kung mupalit akong parents og balay, ipangalan sa ako aon sa ibuhaton, ibutang imong pangalan represented by your parents. Ang mopirma sa kontrata ang imuhang ginikanan. Remember, what is the requisite of consent? First is legal capacity. Second, kung nakay legal capacity, 19 years old ka, dili ka buang, there should be manifestation of the conformity of the parties. Meaning, nag-show ka og actions nga mutugot ka sa inyuhang kontrata. Parties' conformity to the object, cause, terms, and conditions must be intelligent and free from all vices of consent. Unsay vices of consent? Wala ka gitutukan og pusil, wala ka gihadlok para muuyon ka ana nga kontrata. And lastly, the conformity must be real, tinud-anay, sa walay pag duha-duha. I just would like to emphasize legal capacity since usually mauni ang mga problems sa kontrata. So persons incapacitated to give consent, kinsa man ni sila? Kini nga mga tao dili pwede mohatag og consent or mo enter into a contract. First, deaf mutes who do not know how to read and write. Ma'am, akong papa bungol pero makabasa man siya, makasulat man siya, pwede siya mag-enter og contract? Yes, because the law is clear kinsa ang dili maka-enter into a contract. Deaf mutes nga dili kabalong mobasa ug mo sulat. Another persons incapacitated to give consent are those who are insane or demented unless entered during lucid interval. Mo ni akong ginaingon, kung ang imong buang tukar-tukar, ni pirma ka atong panahon nga wa ni tukar imong kabuang, you may enter into a contract. Pero kung karong adlaw na buang ka, karong adlaw ni enter ka into a contract, the contract is not valid. Why? Because you do not have the legal capacity to enter into a contract. Kinsa pa ang dili pwede mo enter into a contract? Minors. So kung below 18 years old ka, dili ka pwede mo enter into a contract. Except. So kanus adi pwede mo enter o contract si minors, ma'am? Contracts for necessaries. Kanang mga panginahanglan nimo nga matag adlaw, mo enter ka into a contract para lang makakaon ka, pwede na siya. Contracts by guardians or legal representatives. So for example, minor ka pero nakay guardian, sila ang mupirma para sa imuha. However, nipirma ka kontrata pero niingon ka nga 19 years old na ka when in fact below 18 years old ka kay minor man di ay ka. This is what we call active misrepresentation. Meaning, if niingon ka nga, palito na ko na imong balay og 350,000. Yan as ha, kabata pa nimo, ingon ka, huy, 19 naman kun, bata lang man kog naong. Karon, the next day niingon si B, huy asa naman imong bayad? Mayroon si A, hala, minor pa man ko, di man ko pwede mo enter into a contract, pwede ba na? No, because there is active misrepresentation on the part of the minor. Minors are stopped from impugning the validity of a contract when they misrepresent their age in entering into a contract on the ground of minority. They must enter through a parent or guardian, otherwise the contract is defective. So what if si A ug si B puro minor? Unsay tawag sa ilang contract? Their contract is unenforceable. Dili gyud na nimo pwede hatagan og force ilang contract. Pero what if ang isa minor, ang isa of legal age, ang ilang contract voidable lang, meaning valid until annulled. Kano sa pa pwede mag-enter into a contract si minor? Kung si minor gusto mag-open og bank account og more than 7 years old ang iyang edad. So what if Si minor nag-enter into a contract. 16 years old siya, niingon siya, paliton ko ng balay 5 years from now. So you count, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old na siya. Even if the contract was entered into when he or she was only 16 years old, pero ingon siya 5 years from now, paliton na ko na siya, the contract is still valid nga naman. That is what we call ratification upon reaching the age of majority. Always remember legal capacity ha, because this will come out in your exam. Now, humana ta sa consent, dili na punta sa objects of a contract. This is provided for in Article 1347 of the New Civil Code. The subject matter of the contract, unsay object sa kontrata, that is the subject matter. Maunay hinungdan nga nung nihatag ka sa imuhang consent. What are the requisites of an object? The object must be determinate as to kind, provided it is possible to determine without need of a new contract. So, muana ka, bayaran ko niya og baboy, hisugot ka. Pero wa man niingon kung unsay color sa baboy, pink ba or itom. That is still valid. Nga naman, parehas man silang baboy. Existing or potentiality to exist subsequent to contract. So, muana ka, hala na ko'y iring, ibaligyan ako na sa imo next month, kay buntis man siya, mga anak siya 5 ka buok, iring. Pwede na ko siya baligya? Yes, pwede nga naman, because there is a potential that the miming will exist months from now. This one, the subject matter of the contract must be within the commerce of man, meaning pwede siya ibaligya. So ako, main ko kang A, ibaligyan ako sa imo ang son. Pwede? No, nga naman. Because the son is not within the commerce of man. Ang son, gipanag-iyahan sa tanang tao sa tibuok kalibutan. Dili ni mo na siya pwede ibaligya. Ibaligyan ako sa imo kong mata kay buta man ka. Is it within the commerce of man? No, you cannot sell any part of your body. Another one, the object of a contract must be transmissible, meaning pwede ibalhin. For example, imong mama, 25 years old, dato og buhi, daghan siya yuta. Imong gibaligi ang yuta sa imong mama nga tukang si, pwede ba na? No, because the land is not yet transmissible. Nga naman, you are not the owner of the land yet. Again, as a way of review, objects of a contract. The first one, requisites of things as object. Unsay pasabot kung ang butang maoy object or subject sa inyong kontrata, it must be within the commerce of man, legally and physically possible, existent and capable to exist. It must be determinate or determinable. What are the requisites of services as an object? So for example, na kay ipabuhat, kontrata, trabaho, it must be within the commerce of man. Dili ka pwede maingon, ali, trabaho diri sa ko, magbuhat og drugs. Is it possible na may trabaho, ma'am? Illegal drugs are not within the commerce of man. So, dili siya pwede. Physically and legally possible, meaning gitugot sa law o pwede mahitabo. Dili ka pwede makigkontrata, dali diri trabaho sa ko ay hagbong ni akong mata. Is it physically possible? No. Determinate or capable of being determinable. Objects of a contract. All rights may be object of a contract unless it is intransmissible by their nature, stipulation, or provision of law. So for example, na kay anak, you all have the right to raise the child. Can the child be the subject of a contract? Pwede siya maging subject of the contract unless intransmissible. Dili pwede basta-basta ibalhin ang bata. Pwede siya nga ang bata mahimong contract depende sa stipulation sa inyong contract o depende kung ang law ni allow nga ang pagbalhin sa right sa imong bata posible. Mo niya kung ginaingon sa imuha kung imong mama dato, pwede ba nimo ibaligya ang yuta sa imong mama kay maingon naman ka ako may takapagmana sa akong mama. Is it possible? Future inheritance cannot be an object of a contract because the person only has inchoate right over the thing or property and its existence is not determinable. Ma'am, nga naman ma'am, nga akong mama na may yuta, matudlo man ako kini yuta ni sa akong mama, pwede ba na? Even if you can determine mauna ang yuta sa imuhang mama, when your mama dies, wala ka kabalo kung kanang yuta sa imuha bagihapon ng mama. Another one, future spouses to donate to each other in their marriage settlement their future property to take effect upon death. Dili pud siya pwede. Persons may make a partition of his estate among his heirs by an act inter vivos provided that the legitim of the compulsory heir is not prejudiced. So, pwede ka maghatag sa imong property sa imong mga tagapagmana provided tanang tagapagmana na hatagan nimo, wala kay gi-eliminate. Let's go to the cause of the contract. Humanata, COC. consent, object, and cause. Cause is the essential impelling reason why a party assumed obligation. So for example, balik ta kay C o kay D. Nagsabot sila nga mosimba sila sa St. Therese for 10 consecutive days. Nganong hingsugot man si D, unsa day ang cause? Nganong hingsugot man siya? Kay tungod hatagan siya ni C og 100,000. Unsa ingon ni 1318? There is no contract unless the following requisites concur. We have consent, object certain, and the cause. See daw tisingan daw natog identify. We have here, S agreed to sell his BMW car to B for 6 million. Pila baligya ni S sa iyang sakyanan? 6 million. In this example, the object here is the delivery of the car. The cost or consideration is the payment of 6 million. There is consent because both parties agree as to the object and the cost of the sale. So what if ma'am, walay object, niingon ra si S, palita akong butang worth 6 million. Klaro ba kung unsa nga butang? Dili. So unsay mahitabo ma'am kung walay object? Effect of lack of any of the requisites, maun sa imong contract, the contract is void and cannot be enforced.